Hello, hello! I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. The past several episodes have been on more serious topics. Well, I'm taking a break from that. Tonight is all about a question asked to me by a viewer, so it's a more sarcastic and fun episode. If you have any writing questions you'd like me to answer, then post them in the comments or send me a direct message and I will do my best to follow through. The question asked was, how do you know your character will survive a story? To that, I give my 7 questions every character should ask to know whether or not they'll survive. As these are based on cliches and in my opinion predictable and therefore bad storytelling mechanics, I'll give my counters at the end for how we can avoid writing them. Number 1, am I a parent in a Disney movie? Well, do I have bad news for you? You're going to die in the first 5 to 10 minutes, if not sooner. This is one of the worst common storytelling tropes that I'll be going through tonight, as it conveys the idea that the only way for a young character to grow is for the parents to be removed. I think a story is much better when it shows those parents surviving the entire story and acting as a support network for the characters. Sure, in general, with the parents alive, the story needs to be adjusted, as no rational parent would allow their kids to go off on these incredibly dangerous adventures. There are ways around this to incorporate good parenting while still having the main character have their adventure. Killing off parents is the simple solution to writing a story. Number 2, did my strained relationship suddenly get fixed? If you spent the past several scenes arguing with your significant other, your moral compass, your friend, whatever, and your relationship gets resolved and you're all happy again for little to no reason, that is a red flag. Things look really bad if one or both of you said I love you. Without resolving the underlying issues of said fight, that is all but a death sentence. At its absolute worst, this is where fridging comes in. That term is used to describe when a primarily female character is killed off in an overly gruesome or sexualized way so that it motivates the male counterpart to respond to the call to action. Unfortunately, this is also where you have couples who are seen as outside the quote-unquote normal relationship status come to an abrupt end. Same-sex couples die in stories at an alarming rate. I wish that weren't true, and that we had more diversity in storytelling and through the duration of these stories. I mean, look at me, I'm about as plain boring as it comes. I'm a white hetero male in a relationship with someone of the opposite gender. If I can recognize that far too many stories mirror my life, then that's a problem. One of the best parts about reading works by indie authors is that they expand to telling more LGBTQ+ focused stories without having to kill off their characters. Though traditional publishing is catching up with new perspectives and views. I'll get back to more lighthearted questions with number 3, am I a grunt? Grunts serving an evil overlord, crime boss, or corrupt military leader are all but guaranteed to die, or at least get several limbs broken. Number 4, am I morally corrupt? Stories have a way of penalizing those who do harm to others. So if you're a crooked landlord or are doing something you wouldn't want your parents to know, the odds of you staying to the end of the story are slim. Your options are split between prison and death, so while you may live, you will suffer. One specific morally corrupt action is to be a jerk to kids. In anything other than a kid's book or movie, that is the pathway to an early death. Honestly, even in some kids' books and movies like Jurassic Park and World, the lawyer and the nanny don't live to the end. Number 5, am I an action hero? But not the lead. This one is tricky and requires self-reflection. The lead hero or heroine will survive the story no matter how many bullets fly their way. They are so amazing that reloading is optional. However, a supporting action hero will often have to sacrifice himself on the lead character's behalf. Number 6, are you a spare? Is there someone within your group who's better at being you than you? If you're the comic relief, is there someone whose jokes land better? If you're an athlete, are you a bench warmer hanging out with the star QB? Are you the second smartest person in the room and the number 1 isn't arrogant about it? Although, there aren't many deaths in stories which take place at a mathlete competition, unless... Number 7, am I in the horror genre? Characters may survive a horror book or movie, however those that aren't dismembered, decapitated, or doomed will wind up with a serious case of PTSD. Sure, they lived, but at what cost? For those who aren't the leads, they likely died in an overly dramatic fashion. Worse, their bodies may have been arranged to further traumatize the leads just before the climactic showdown. Those are my 7 questions to know whether or not a character will live. These deal mostly with adult, new adult, and young adult stories. For middle grade, really only the first question on survivability applies. How can we write so that we don't include these tropes? Well, keep parents alive, don't kill people as motivation for a romantic partner, and treat LGBTQ plus characters with respect by making them more than a checkbox to prove a story is diverse. Don't create a same-sex couple for the sole purpose of killing off one or both of them. Instead, build the story around a same-sex couple for the purpose of making it more realistic and interesting. When every character looks, acts, and lives the same, it is a simplistic way of telling a story, and to me, indicates a lack of world building which brings down the plot. As for the grunts and morally corrupt, consider making them more than mindless evils to advance plot or die through irrelevance. When a story broadcasts that it's going to kill a character, the eventual death scene rarely lives up to expectations. Sure, we the readers will cheer when a sadistic and abusive king dies, yet that moment after 3 or 4 books of build-up will never compare to the expectations and scenarios we've imagined in our heads. The same goes for the side action hero supporting the main character. We know eventually they'll step aside, but why not make that action hero's strength into a weakness? The action hero's tendency is to attack first, which wins the battle but loses the war. Then it's up to the main character to inspire that action hero out of their slump. For spare characters, consider making their personality and mindsets unique. Even if they share hobbies and skills with fan favorites, they can bring in a different outlook for a new approach. For example, make it so that 2 thieves on a team have opposing strategies for how to sneak into an evil overlord's castle and steal the MacGuffin. They aren't redundant, they each have unique insights and play off one another so that losing one would cripple the team and emotionally crush readers. As for horror, nothing needs to be done. High kill counts go hand in hand with the genre, so don't get too attached to any one character. I will say that fake outs can be helpful in a story. We know that the person wandering by themselves will be killed. Why not make it so they return to their friends, or get to a place that they and thus the readers feel safe, before flipping that trust and killing them? I do think writers should freely kill off characters as the story requires. However, I don't like when a character's death is foreshadowed for an extended period, and then when the death arrives, it's treated like some surprise. When we kill off our characters, make the moment more than a ploy to stir drama or interest in a lagging story. Those are my 7 alternatives to these tropes. I hope that we as writers continue to create new, more captivating stories. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write. If you enjoy my slightly more sarcastic questions about characters and stories, then please press those like and subscribe buttons. I don't want to be killed off by the YouTube algorithm, and your support helps keep this channel alive. Let me know in those comments how you know a character will be killed off based on their intro. Do you agree with my opinions, or is everything I said wrong? I post my running and writing progress on Instagram and Twitter as Running to Write, so be sure to follow me and join in with your own thoughts. For fans of Running to Write, I've created a monthly newsletter. Please sign up if you want regular updates on my assorted musings, pitfalls, and lessons learned. I'll also be including relevant milestones in writing and running. The link is in the description below. See you next time. Until then, ask why your characters are being killed off, and decide whether it's necessary.